Hello guys, so welcome back again to my mini lecture video. So for today's discussion, we're going to talk about the water used and pollution. A British poet once noted, "Thousands have lived without love, not one without water." Yet, while we all know water is crucial for life, we trash it anyway. Some 80% of world's water waste is dumped largely untreated back into the environment, polluting rivers, lakes, and oceans. This widespread problem of water pollution is jeopardizing our health. Unsafe water kills more people each year than all other forms of violence combined. Meanwhile, our drinkable water sources are finite. Less than 1% of Earth's fresh water is actually accessible to us. Without action, the challenges will only increase by 2050, when global demands for fresh water is expected to be one-third greater than it is now. What is water pollution? Water pollution occurs when harmful substances, often chemicals or microorganisms, contaminate a stream, river, lake, ocean, aquifer, or other body of water, degrading water quality and rendering it toxic to humans or the environment. What are the causes of water pollution? Water is uniquely vulnerable to pollution. It is known as universal solvent. Water is able to dissolve more substances than any other liquid on Earth. It's the reason we have Kool-Aid and brilliant blue waterfalls. It's also why water is so easily polluted. Toxic substances from farms, towns, and factories readily dissolve into and mix with it, causing water pollution. Categories of water pollution. Groundwater. Groundwater gets polluted when contaminants from pesticides and fertilizers to waste leached from landfills and septic systems make their way into an aquifer, rendering it unsafe for human use. Ridding groundwater of contaminants can be difficult or impossible, as well as costly. Once polluted, an aquifer may be unusable for decades, or even thousands of years. Groundwater can also spread contamination far from the original polluting source, as it seeps into streams, lakes, and oceans. Surface water. Covering about 70% of the earth, surface water is what fills our oceans, lakes, rivers, and all those other blue bits on the world map. According to the most recent surveys on national water quality from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, nearly half of our rivers and streams and more than one-third of our lakes are polluted and unfit for swimming, fishing, and drinking. Nutrient pollution, which include nitrates and phosphates, is the leading type of contamination in these freshwater sources. While plants and animals need these nutrients to grow, they have become a major pollutant due to farm waste and fertilizer runoff. Municipal and industrial waste discharges contribute their fair share of toxins as well. There's also all the random junk that industry and individual dump directly into waterways. Ocean water. 80% of ocean pollution originates on land, whether along the coast or far inland. Contaminants such as chemicals, nutrients, and heavy metals are carried from farms, factories, and cities by streams and rivers into our bays and estuaries. From there, they travel out to sea. Our seas are also sometimes spoiled by oil spill and leaks, big and small, and are constantly soaking up carbon pollution from the air. The ocean absorbs as much as a quarter of man-made carbon emissions. Non-point source. Non-point source pollution is contamination derived from diffuse sources. This may include agricultural or stormwater runoff or debris blown into waterways from land. Transboundary. It goes without saying that water pollution can't be contained by a line on a map. Transboundary pollution is the result of contaminated water from one country spilling into the waters of another. Contamination can result from a disaster like an oil spill or the slow, downriver creep of industrial, agricultural, and municipal discharge. The most common types of water contamination. Not only is the agricultural sector the biggest consumer of global freshwater resources, with farming and livestock production using about 70% of the Earth's surface water supplies, but it's also a serious water polluter. Around the world, agriculture is the leading cause of water degradation. It's also a major contributor of contamination to estuaries and groundwater. Every time it rains, fertilizers, pesticides, and animal waste from farms and livestock operations wash nutrients and pathogens, such bacteria and viruses, into our waterways. Sewage and wastewater. Used water is wastewater. It comes from our sinks, showers, and toilets, and from commercial, industrial, and agricultural activities. The term also includes storm water runoff, which occur when rainfall carries road salts, oil, grease, chemicals, and debris from impermeable surfaces into our waterways. More than 80% of the world's wastewater flows back into the environment without being treated or used, according to the United Nations. Also, according to EPA estimates, our nation's aging and easily overwhelmed sewage treatment system also releases more than 850 billion gallons of untreated wastewater each year. Radioactive substances. Radioactive waste is any pollution that emits radiation beyond what is naturally released by the environment. It's generated by uranium mining, nuclear power plants, and the production and testing of military weapons, as well as by universities and hospitals that use radioactive materials for research and medicine. Radioactive waste can persist in the environment for thousands of years, making disposal a major challenge. Accidentally released or improper dispose of contaminants threaten groundwater, surface water, and marine resources. What are the effects of water pollution, especially on human health? Water pollution kills. In fact, it caused 1.8 million deaths in 2015. According to a study published in The Lancet, contaminated water can also make you ill. Every year, unsafe water sickens about 1 billion people, and low-income communities are disproportionately at risk because their homes are often closest to the most polluting industries. Waterborne pathogens in the form of disease-causing bacteria and viruses from human and animal waste are a major cause of illness from contaminated drinking water. Diseases spread by unsafe water include cholera, giardia, and typhoid. Even in wealthy nations, accidental or illegal releases from sewage treatment facilities, as well as runoff from farms and urban areas, contribute harmful pathogens to water waste. Effects on the environment. When water pollution causes an algal bloom in lake or marine environment, the proliferation of newly introduced nutrients stimulates plant and algae growth, which in turn reduces oxygen levels in the water. This dearth of oxygen, known as eutrophication, suffocates plants and animals and can create dead zones, where waters are essentially devoid of life. These harmful algal blooms can also produce neurotoxins that affect wildlife, from whales to sea turtles. Chemicals and heavy metals from industrial and municipal wastewater contaminate waterways as well. These contaminants are toxic to aquatic life, most often reducing an organism's lifespan and ability to reproduce, and make their way up the food chain as predator eats prey. That's how tuna and other big fish accumulate high quantities of toxins such as mercury. Marine ecosystems are also threatened by marine debris, which can strangle, suffocate, and starve animals. Much of the solid debris, such as plastic bags and soda cans, gets swept into sewers and storm drains and eventually out to sea, turning our oceans into trash soup and sometimes consolidating to form floating garbage patches. Discarded fishing gear and other types of debris are responsible for harming more than 200 different species of marine life. What can you do to prevent water pollution? There are some simple ways you can prevent water contamination or at least limit your contribution to it. First, reduce your plastic consumption and reuse or recycle plastic when you can. Second, properly dispose of chemical cleaners, oils, and non-biodegradable items to keep them from ending up down the drain. Third, if you have a yard, consider landscaping that reduces runoff and avoid applying pesticides and herbicides. This ends our discussion about water use and pollution. I hope you learned something from this video and see you on my next mini lecture video.